What's up?
Good morning. How are you? Well, actually, good afternoon to you. Good morning to me. How are you?
Good afternoon to you, Anthony.
Good afternoon to you, Doctor. Our last call, we talked about a lot of really awesome things. It was actually one of our most viewed videos, which was awesome. But I wanted to do a part two because my original question had to do with like Dr. Dave. You know, I think everyone sees you as Bro Dave, but I don't know how many people see you as Dr. Dave. And what inspired me to have this call was because I asked our community all these questions of like, hey, you know, we talk about like recovery and we talk about all these like very like baseline things. But I think what's really cool about you is I'll ask you a question and sometimes you'll start talking in a way where I'm like, speak English, doc. And I kind of want to pick your brain on something that a Miss Amy Danheim asked. She's been in the shred with us since May, and I'm sure she's been with us probably even more than that, but at least what I see on our back end. But I want to talk more about like the sciencey question and like the like biological effects that our program has when it comes to like tempos and rep schemes. And if you can give me like a little like Spark Note version of that.
Sure. Let me just take a second here.
Download all the info.
Fix them out. Yeah, all right, got it. Okay.
Action.
Yeah, so I mean, let's start with just training, right? Because that's what we're talking about. I think a lot of people will tend to overemphasize the scientific component of training.
Right, and that's super big right now, isn't it?
Very popular. It makes you feel good. It reminds me of Tommy Boy, where he's like, but there's no guarantee on the box. We're like, here's a guaranteed piece of shit.
Yeah.
The science is always changing. You can cherry pick a study to have it say whatever you want. And I think people like thinking that what they're doing is optimal. Maybe there's a placebo effect even there as well, right? I think more general, like with a training program, there's three really important things. One, you have to enjoy it. You have to like the training. You know, like you got to go into the gym excited to train, because if you'll do that, you'll execute it consistently over a long period of time, and the consistency outweighs the science by far. Okay, so like consistency beats optimal any day of the week. So you really have to enjoy it. You got to like it. It's got to be the type of training where you're looking forward to it. You're entertained, you're engaged. You know, motivation is going to ebb and flow throughout the year. So if it's like something you don't really love, then there's going to come time where you're just not going to stick with it. And then you end up kind of back in the same place. And I think that's where a lot of athletes end up in this cycle of like doing something for a little bit. And then they're like, yeah, and then I stopped doing it. And then I did this other thing, and they kind of bounce around too much. And that would represent inconsistency, where consistency is the critical component. The second thing is that the training program has to match up with the desired effect, right? So I talked to you guys a little bit about some basic principles of biology and exercise science. The first one being the gas syndrome, right? Gas theory, general adaptation syndrome, meaning an organism will tend to adapt to the stress you place upon it. So if you're a pale guy, you go out in the sun, you're going to get sunburned, right? And there's a stress response, and then there's an overcompensation. Now your skin gets tan. It's a little bit more resistant to burning, i.e. you can handle being in the sun more, right? And there's a million examples of that in training, right? The tissue and tendons, with regard to hypertrophy at least, will thicken and broaden. You'll see things like increased mitochondrial density in muscle fibers where they can perform more work. You'll see myogenesis, where there's more myosin and actin filaments and fibrils that are able to attach each other, and they're bigger and they're stronger. The muscle is more resilient and has a greater cross-sectional size and strength, so it can handle more force. And the tendons that connect the muscle to bone will thicken. The bones will increase in density to handle the structural stress you're placing on them by loading. So that's the adaptation we're looking for, which is, from a training standpoint, the SAID principle. So a specific adaptation, the specific adaptation for, Thunderbro Muscle Anarchy is increased muscle fiber size and strength and stamina. So the specific adaptation to an imposed demand, the imposed demand being, we're going to use all those fun methods. We're going to give you a lot of loading, a lot of time under tension. We're going to exhaust muscle fibers. We're going to use things like heavy mechanical loading to, get the most tension in the muscle to create a strong neurological effect and help you learn how to fire motor units. We're going to use lots of tempos to break down the tissue so it heals thicker. We're going to use metabolic stress to pump the muscle out to get those enzymatic protein responses in the muscle and increase the capacity of the muscle. So those are the tools, right? And that's the imposed demand. So the goal, whatever your goal is, should match up with the style of training. So if I'm trying to let's say, increase my endurance, it probably doesn't look like a hypertrophy program. If I'm trying to improve my Olympic lifting, it probably doesn't look like an endurance program. Where most people are coming from, which is kind of this functional fitness space, specifically a lot of people CrossFit, that program is very broad, gives you a lot of adaptations everywhere, but not a tremendous amount in any single area. The single area we're focusing on is size and strength. The reason why we're focusing on size and strength is because we believe muscle is the currency of longevity. And once you've tapped out your ability to perform a lot of things really well, I think the biggest area to improve is just increasing the size of your machine. Once you've gotten to the point where your body is starting to break down, you want to fortify those critical areas of breakdown. Once you've gotten yourself to the point where your hormones are starting to subside, and maybe you're dealing with some higher low level of hormone suppression, muscle mass is going to help garner that. Once you're at the point where your metabolism is slowing down, increasing your muscle mass is going to fix that. Whether your insulin sensitivity isn't what it used to be, like muscle mass really is the answer to a lot of these questions of why people are coming to us with their big gripes. How do I continue to train hard and not get hurt? I believe hypertrophy training is the answer. And how do I continue to see results when what I've been doing has kind of run its course? Hypertrophy training is the answer in my view. And the reason from the breakdown standpoint is not only that it fortifies critical areas of breakdown, but based on the style of training that most athletes are coming to us from, which is CrossFit or strength sport, or basically like, lifting heavy weights at low repetition ranges or going as fast as you can or as heavy as you can, the orthopedic breakdown is accelerated. And so those key players associated with injury are usually speed and load. Like I went too fast or I went too heavy. Hypertrophy training, that's not really good hypertrophy training. Hypertrophy training is about slowing things down and, working with submaximal loads, specifically focused on just increasing the muscle fiber size. So, it's nicer on your joints is a simple way of saying it, right? And so I think for a lot of people now, they can come in and they can train consistently because it's nicer on the joints and they're focusing on a specific area, not to mention that they're coming in with a lot of skills typically, right? They're coming in with the skills of like knowing how to perform these really high utility functional movements like squats and deadlifts and presses, and they know how to be efficient. Like they got the wiring, they know how to move core to extremity and be, get the most amount of work out of the least amount of effort. And they know how to work really hard because they'll do pull-ups until their hands bleed or until they're puking. So now like take that, focus it, channel it in one direction, and they see accelerated progress. Whereas before you're like, oh, I'm plateauing, I'm going down. Now I'm seeing progress again. So that is the second key component is, does it match your goal? And if your goal is, how do I continue to train hard and not get hurt? How do I continue to see progress when it's not working anymore? I think the hypertrophy training is the answer. It doesn't have to be our hypertrophy training, but that would make sense to place that in there. And then lastly, and I think this is another place people miss the mark, is does the training program meet me for where I'm at physically with my capability, based on my biology, based on my logistics and time? So like, if you're trying to do like, the competition CrossFit program, that's 3 sessions a day with high skill movements and lots of higher risk, you could say, exercises, that really doesn't fit you if you're someone who's got 45 minutes for an hour to train. it's just too much. Or if your body can't recover from it, that's just too much, right? And that's actually why we have different versions of our program, because we can take the principles of blending performance and aesthetics and using the hypertrophy methods that we draw from, and we can present them in multiple formats, maybe different training splits. Like, here's a 3-day-a-week program if you need more time to recover. Here's a 4-day-a-week program. Here's a 5-day-a-week program. Here's a program that's 45 minutes long. Here's a program with dumbbells only. Here's a program that focuses on your glutes. Here's a program that focuses more on your upper body. Like, you can really dial it in to the point where now you like what you're doing. It's matching with what your goals are, and you're actually able to do it. It's not beyond your ability level or beyond your ability to actually execute the program. And then within our methods, right, we take an approach that I really like because I feel like it's a very athletic approach to training. Most traditional hypertrophy training is done in a linear format. So you'll see things like what they call linear periodization, where you're essentially doing the same movements, maybe the same reps, the same weight, or the same loading for maybe higher reps each week, but you're trying to do a little bit more with the same movements and controlling every variable you can, right? The same barbell, the same lead up, the same, everything is identical, right? And you do that and you progressively ask your muscle to do more and more with a very specific set of movements. And over the course of weeks, you should see some improvement, at which point you usually need to change something, right? And the science-based lifters would say, like, hey, usually the optimal hypertrophy range is 8 to 12 reps. If you're talking about getting the most amount of muscle growth, usually it's about, maybe 4 sets with 2 of them being really, really hard. Maybe you're looking at about 4 to 6 movements in a session, and they really stick to that, and everything is very similar. That's great. That works until it doesn't. So when does it stop working? Well, once you're accommodated to those movements, it's really not going to work much anymore. Like, you're getting diminished returns. Or more so for our athletes, the 8 to 12 rep range, even that might be a little bit heavy for every single exercise for the wear and tear in their joints. I think it's good to like hit one of those in a session where you have like what we would call the heavy mechanical loading movement. It's like an 8 to 12 rep top set for maybe the compound lift of the day, but every single movement being within that specific stimulus limits you. So like, I'll train with bodybuilders, and if they train outside that range, all of a sudden they're weak. Like, life doesn't happen in only 12 reps. So you're immediately sacrificing applicability outside the gym. And furthermore, like, if that is just too much loading, you have other tools you can draw from. So what can you do? Well, you can slow things down to make it harder. So you can work with like slower tempos, maybe more concentration work is what we would kind of term it, adding in pauses, isometric holds, that kind of stuff. You can go up and you can be like, you know what, now we're going to do ultra high reps and we're going to push a lot of blood into the muscle. So like those 3 mechanisms that we talk about, one is, heavy mechanical loading or muscular tension. That makes sense. 8 to 12 reps is a good spot for that. But you can go outside of that and still get a lot of muscular tension. You can go down, you can go up. The other mechanism is muscle micro tearing or muscular damage, which is really best achieved by like really slow and controlled eccentrics, which you can do with like very lightweight and higher repetition ranges, maybe 15s, maybe 20s, right? But you're like, really pinning down and isolating a muscle and making it work slowly and controlled. And so that's a way to kind of circumvent the loading. If it's just too much on your joints, you can slow it down and really pin it down. And then the last method, which is called metabolic stress, is the acute buildup of hydrogen and lactate in the muscle through high rep, short rest, lightweight lifting. So like really going into the 30s, the 40s, the 50 rep ranges, or having really short rest periods where, you're not really able to get fresh blood in the muscle. So the byproducts of the muscular contraction, those waste products like hydrogen and lactate, they get trapped in the muscle, and those create enzymatic protein responses in the muscle that are really anabolic. Now, like, I think that they all complement each other, right? So those things work all well together because now you're casting a really wide net. So if you're someone who responds better to one or the other, like, you'll get some. But if you're someone who's like, just the heavy mechanical loading alone, the 8 to 12 rep alone, 1, I find it boring, but 2, like, it's just a little too much on my joints. Now you have other tools to pull from. And I also think that builds the engagement. The other non-traditional style of bodybuilding that we use is this idea of undulating periodization, where we rotate movements. So while there is a frame based on a body part split, for instance, like Muscle Anarchy, legs, chest, back, shoulders, and arms, and you'll see very similar genres of movement. Like on leg day, you'll see a squat-based movement, a hinge-based movement, a single leg movement. You'll also see different variations of them week to week, which eliminates our need to deal with the natural regulators of linear periodization, because you're never getting enough of the same stimulus to fully accommodate to it. You can stay on this program for an indefinite amount of time, and you're working multiple variations of the squat and the hinging and the single leg, or with pressing, right? Different angles of the press, different, everything will be getting better collectively to at once. It might not get, like, if you were focusing on a barbell bench press, it might not get specifically as the rate of improvement might be a little bit slower than if you just barbell bench press for like 8 to 12 weeks.
Yeah.
But the what you get is you get versatility. Like, you're building better joint integrity because you're working different angles and different stimulus. You're getting continued progress where you should be able to keep, doing that and avoid plateau. So I think it's kind of like a really nice mix of maybe some of the things that we liked from CrossFit, maybe some of that with regard to, one, the functional movement. So you're not just doing this on machines, but you're doing it with like things that apply outside the gym.
Right.
And the athletic component is very important, because you're not just trying to be a display model only, but you're trying to be able to like use your fitness, your muscle outside the gym. But also that element of variance where, although it's not like random, we are alternating movements in a way that's going to build a lot of versatility and allow you to continue to stick with this for quite a while. And then there's that like social dynamic, that intellectual interest of like, man, what's it going to be this week? Because it's awful every week, like you can go in the gym excited and be like, I don't know what this is going to be, but I know it's going to be hard. And we are controlling some variables, but not all variables, right? Like we're keeping things kind of moving. And I think that honestly is like a bit of the idea of like, you never know what you're going to get exposed to outside the gym. So you probably should practice a lot. And I think from a health standpoint too, you want to be able to move in every plane and every angle. So you might find that, like, if you find a movement that you're like, man, that movement is really challenging me. Like, for instance, like, here's a great example of like a guy who maybe he does like a Cossack squat, which is almost like a lateral type of squat. And he's like, dude, those Cossack squats, like I couldn't even get into that position. Well, if you do that a little bit and you're mixing that in, all of a sudden the movements that you're already good at get even better. Yeah. Because you're fixing a chink in your armor. And you don't have to do that every day, all day, but like you want to play around in some of those areas. And that exploration of movement is really something that I think overall gives you good longevity. Obviously you want to be careful if you feel something that's like, that does not feel good, you can cross it off the list. But if it's something you're like, hey, I'm just challenged by that, and it's like an opportunity. And then, the idea of going into a gym every day and doing 8 to 12 reps, in my view, people don't stick with that because that gets boring. Yeah. So I like introducing new stimulus, like throwing in things with partials and isometrics and drop sets and supersets and blood starvation sets and giant sets, and all the fun tricks and tools that fit into those 3 broad categories that really help athletes pull intensity out of themselves in a way they're unaccustomed to, because that unaccustomed element is where you see the fastest progress. The things you're already good at, it's really hard to get much better at them, but the things that you're not so good at, you can get better at them fairly quickly. So I think that's like a big key element in it. I don't know if that answers the question about methodology, but like there's science in there. And I think you guys out there training, it's cool to know the science and everything like that, but I wouldn't even worry about it. I would just make sure that you're enjoying the program, that you're doing it consistently, that's matching up for where you're at. And if you can do those things and do them progressively, meaning over time, you're pushing yourself a little bit more and more. I think it's like breathing air into a fire, where all of a sudden, that fire was getting kind of damp and kind of dim doing what you were doing. And now it's burning hot again. And that psychologically is a big lift for people, that might be that lift is what might keep you coming back, feeling like, hey, there's still things to achieve. There's still progress I can make, especially when we consider some of those issues we talked about in the beginning: hormone suppression, injury, life's getting harder. I don't have as much time. My body doesn't respond the way that it used to. I believe these are the answers.
Well, I think you've given us an incredibly fun program that, whether you've been on it since day one or you've just been doing it for a couple months, I think you have an incredible program.
Anthony, there's there are a lot of different iterations of the muscle anarchy method that I like alternate between. Like sometimes when I have groups over here, I love doing like express or muscle anarchy because it's fun to do like functional movements with your buddies. Yeah. We'll do the conditioning together. When I'm by myself sometimes and I go to a club gym, I mean, like Machine Head is gnarly. It's so fun. It's got like, I think of all the programs, I think Machine Head honestly is one of the most innovative ones because no one's training like that in the club gym. And that's like ultra high level bodybuilding stuff. That's like elite secrets of Olympia champions. So for all these people that are like on their headphones doing like 8 to 12 reps, not really working, this is going to like knock them on their ass. And I
completely agree with you.
People in CrossFit, I think they tend to look at the club gym and think, well, that's not really a place where you can train really hard. But the truth is, like, if you just reinvent it a little bit, because you know how to train hard, right? You reinvent it a little bit and you start to understand how to pull that intensity out of yourself using methods, all of a sudden that leg extension machine becomes way more exciting.
Yeah, with a triple pulse walking lunge that you throw in there, brother. Listen, I couldn't agree with you anymore. That's why I if anything, I think, I need to do a better job of promoting Machine Head to some people, because that is the one program opposed to Muscle Anarchy that when you debuted that, I mean, I think I did like 3 or 4 months on that. And even everyone at my CrossFit gym was like, where have you been? And I'm like, I've been stuck at 24-hour fitness because I can't get out.
Great for non-CrossFitters because they know the club gym, and I think it really takes their experience and changes it. And it's great for CrossFitters who are like, hey, I just can't go in a CrossFit gym anymore. Maybe they just can't handle it. Maybe they don't want to be in the community, like having all those people around them. Maybe just like the whole atmosphere of it is a little too much. They just want to put on their headphones and do their thing. And
I agree.
That's cool. I don't think that's a wrong or a bad thing. I think we tend to diminish that. But like some people, they don't want to be taught. They just want to come in and hit their workout for 45 minutes and leave. They don't want to talk to anybody, and that's fine. They don't have to. You don't have to win the Spirit of the Games award every time you train.
Well, Dave, thank you. People are going to be excited to hear this, brother. So thank you. Let's get to our next meeting, brother.
Next meeting. We're 6 minutes late.